Hello, this is another short SuiteCX tutorial, and in this tutorial I want to talk a little bit about different ways that we can display scores, metrics, and graphs in SuiteCX right in your story maps. So this came up recently with one of our customers, and it provided a nice opportunity for me to introduce them to all our various different scoring capabilities. So we thought this would make a nice tutorial for others as well. So what I've got here that I'm showing on my screen is a typical story map. I'm using a retail example in this scenario. I've got my eye points laid out across the top. If you notice in the upper left-hand corner of the eye points, they all have a score. So that score was actually loaded into the eye point editor. In our scores section, we have a place for 6 scores. We have 3 customer scores and 3 company scores. They are defined as such. Now you can obviously change the meaning of these scores just by working with us. These are kind of placeholders, but they are the most commonly described scores regarding the customer experience from the customer's perspective, and then the company's effort, ROI, and engagement. So I loaded some scores just so we can take a look at what we can do with those scores. This would be obviously if your score is at the touch level. So what I have just below the customer journey map is actually a chart, a line graph that goes all the way across the map. And when you hover over it, it actually gives you an identification of which eye point these scores are for and what the scores are. And then over on the right, there's a legend. So now you can see over the experience how things are trending. In this case, I chose a customer graph story. So I'm only showing my customer scores, which would be customer engagement, customer satisfaction, and NPS. So you can see how those are trending over the experience. If I had chosen the company story map with graph, then I would be looking at the company scores on the graph here instead. So the way that I added this feature to my story map, this graph is auto-graphing. It happens actually on its own. I don't have to create this at all. It just automatically or auto-magically happens. So the way to do that is when you go into edit this map and you're working on your rows and you're defining the functionality of each of your rows, there's an option here that's called story map with graph. And you can either do a customer story map with graph or a company. And you can either choose to do a small one or a large one. It just depends on how many touches you have across that story. You may need to do a large one, or a small one might be okay. So this is the option that I chose. And because I chose that option, the map will automatically render in the graph all the scores that I've got inside the eye points. So an easy and quick way for you to enhance your story maps with some data and scores. We really encourage you to do that. The next section here is a totally different concept. And what we've got here is a series of lines, and they are user defined. So what I did in this example is I said, okay, let's quantify the number of pain points, the number of transactional touches, and the number of key moments that we have across this experience. And this would be from the customer's perspective. So you can create a legend here, and it re-indicated the lifecycle phase: trigger, need, aware, and shop. So you can see by hovering over that our shop experience has the most moments of truth with 4. And we've also got our most pain points with 3. And I have found that this is a really nice way to enhance your storytelling and summarize some of the information regarding what's happening at a super high level. So the way that I created this graph was by going to edit this map. And within my functionality and names options, I chose the graph that spans all columns. And that's what this looks like. It looks like what I've got here. So once you do that, and then you've got your graph all set up, then you just go to the graph settings, and within your map editor, you can just go ahead and make these data points be whatever you want them to be. You can change the colors of the lines. So I might change my blue to an orange and say, okay. I can change my legend, and I can also change the scores and values that are inside each of the categories. So once you do that, you've got another way of showing scores on your map. Just below that is our pain point report, which I've featured in a different tutorial, just kind of refreshing you on that, as well as an emotional heat map report, which we have here as well. So down to the bottom, I'm just going to kind of keep scrolling. I've got a blank panel here that I've just included some findings and insights in. And what's cool is because we loaded these customer scores against our interaction points, we actually have a dial, which is operating as a summary. So here's our total NPS for the whole experience based on the scores we loaded. Here's our customer experience, and here's our CSAT. So another cool way for you to show insights across your story map. And then down at the bottom, I chose a combination of pie and graph charts just to quantify some additional pieces of information. And what I did here was I quantified the number of campaigns that we as a company execute against this experience, whether it be SMS, email, or direct mail. And you could represent these however you wish as a pie or a graph. I just wanted to show the options or a bar. So the way that I chose that is by going to edit this map. And within the functionality and names where you set up your map, the very last row here is simply the graph, and the graph repeats itself within each column. So that's the one I chose. And then once you choose that, you can go to it. And then again, you can just completely customize it, and you can add as many key metrics as you need. It will automatically give you the opportunity to add metrics per each lifecycle phase that you have already set up in your map. So in this map, I've got 6, and that's why I have 6 boxes. So I could add 6 scores to each of the lifecycle phases. So just one quick thought before we conclude this tutorial. The most important thing is to think about at what level is your score or metric. If your score or metric is at the map level, then you might want to just use a storytelling element or a text container and just put that score in right in text, right on the map, so people can see immediately this is the score for this experience as a total. If your score is at the life cycle phase, then you might want to think about, okay, what types of options do I have? So I can use these bar or pie charts. Those are life cycle level scores. Or I could use the line graph that spans all columns. If your score or metric is at the touch, individual touch, then you can think, great, okay, that's an opportunity for me to load the score directly into the touches. And then that would be a nice opportunity to use the story map auto graph so that you can see how these scores perform across the experience. So what I've shown you here is 3 different sort of levels of scores, or at least 2. And one more thing before we go, don't forget at any time, you can always go to your map statistics. Just take a look at the whole picture. And this is sort of another opportunity to provide a report against your experience. We can look at the total number of eye points that we have. We can look at how our scores have been populated against their potential total amount. And then we can look at how we've tagged our emotions in a quantified manner, and also the different actors or descriptors that we've used on this map. So you can see we've got 12 pain points in total and 2 moments of truth and 1 that we called triggered. So that's it. Just want to give you creative options and ideas. Maps with scores are really powerful, and they really help the reader when they're seeking to understand the key points behind your experience and how well or not well it's going. Thanks for watching, and hope to connect with you soon.